Get started.
So I feel very blessed.
Hey, 7:04, we're gonna get started. Yep. We'll count, we'll count in for Walpole Cable in just a second.
Voice of authority there.
Thank you for waking me up.
He likes to think.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Finance Committee meeting of March 31st. We are being live or just recorded tonight, Jim?
We're live.
We're live tonight? Okay, we're live. We have a quorum of 12 in attendance. Nobody is on Zoom, so everything will be a voice vote tonight. First item up is Article 4, current year budget items. Jim?
Sure, so it's really only two items here. That's one of the reasons why we have Chairman Forsberg of the Capital Budget Committee. Two capital budget items. A little bit out of order, but there's a reason they're getting moved up. One is the ambulance for $450,000, and one is some defibrillators. Ed can get into them a little bit. They had a couple of session 2 weeks ago with department heads. You want to talk a little bit about the request, Ed?
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Good evening.
Yes.
Yeah, this year we have, like Jim said, two items on the capital request, and the first one is to replace an ambulance. It's the 2015 ambulance that is currently in service. And actually, it was not due to be replaced until next year in 2023, but with the lead times extended and the cost is rising by the month. So thought we'd get the order in now where we had the money and stuff, and so it'd be ready when it's, it would be there when we needed it. That is, the request was for $450,000, and the capital budget voted favorable action 600 for $450,000 out of the ambulance fund.
Mark?
Yep.
Can we
Yeah,
wait
we
for
can,
both, or
no, we can do one at a time.
are we retiring the 2015 one, or selling?
Yes, usually that's the oldest one, so what we do is we take the older one out of service, and I think, Jim, we're gonna try maybe putting that to auction and to
Yeah.
trade it in to see if we can get a little bit more money. The auctions have worked a little bit better for us for getting money back.
So just for everybody's general knowledge, at any point in time, we have 3 ambulances in-house, 2 that are on active rotation, and the third one's a backup in case one of them goes down. Okay, Larry, and then Brian?
How much is in the ambulance funds as we speak approximately?
$2,758,097.
Okay, is that a capital fund or an operating fund?
Both.
Okay.
So what we've done is, we've been using it to fund part of the budget. This year, we budgeted $950,000 as part of the capital budget, or as part of the budget process. And as part of the capital project process, we funded about $620,000 in projects in that. So I've been concerned about, what's the sustainability in that, we're up to $950 for operating on that one. Are we gonna be okay? We keep growing steadily. Over the last 3 years, we've averaged a 10.3% increase in that fund each year. 5 years, 9.6, 10 years, it was 6.4. So I took the lowest, the 10 years, reached it out over 5 years, because I was just curious to see what the balance would be if we kept going at 950 and 620. So at 4% growth each year, I still figure, and Jody agrees with these numbers, we're gonna have in FY '27 a balance of $3.1 million. So we're in good shape with that.
How much does annually come in approximately? I know is it just, the ambulance runs, correct?
Yeah, so the fees collected, historically, going 19, it was 1.2, 20, 1.3, 21, 1.4, and as of today, as of the writing of my chart here, we had collected almost 1.1 million as of 2/1. So,
Do we treat it as somewhat of retained earnings of sorts?
I don't look at it that way, and you don't either. No, it's specifically, it's an ambulance reserve receipt account.
Yeah, it's kind of like restricted capital. It has to be used for ambulance and fire-related services. Cannot be allocated anywhere else within our budget.
I guess I would just ask the next fire truck that comes on, I would hope maybe we could use some of that to maybe subsidize it or buy it all, since it seems to be pretty flush, but,
Yeah.
thank you. Oh, and the 450, is that, do we pay that now, or is it something you pay a piece
One
now?
of the reasons I've asked to move this up, because all it does, it gets encumbered. We don't pay for the truck until it actually is delivered. That's a Mass General law, so it goes from the ambulance account to one of the capital accounts for the fire department and sits there for maybe 2 years. however
And
long
if
it
you
takes.
agree to a 450 price today, they,
That's one that we lock in.
you lock it, okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna add that each ambulance generates about $600,000 a year in billing. And a couple other notes is that with Norwood Hospital closed, it's putting an extra burden on the ambulances, the wear and tear and the mileage. So it's good to get it in line now.
Brian?
Through you, Mark, maybe Deputy Chief Barry, life expectancy of an ambulance?
Thank you. We try to replace the ambulance every 3 years, so it'll keep one ambulance in service for 6 years, and then the oldest one gets dropped down to the spare, and we use a spare somewhat frequently. It's just when the ambulance go out of service, instead of dropping down, they're constantly rolling, so it's extremely beneficial to have a reliable spare in service as well.
So when this new one gets here, what will the age of the second one be?
It's a 2019.
2019, okay, thank you, all set.
Quick question, the fees we collect, it's per call, not necessarily how far you travel, correct?
There's a step that depends on, there's a scale, and it goes from BLS to ALS, depending on the type of skills you provide. There's also an option, not an option, there's also a mileage
Okay.
charge as
So the
well.
fact that we have to go into Boston or to Newton instead of Norwood, we're collecting extra fees on
Correcting
that
extra, I'm
mileage?
not exactly sure what that mileage fee is,
Okay.
and it's very regulated as to
Okay.
to what it is.
Alrighty. Okay, we're good on the ambulance? Okay, thanks.
All set on that? Okay, and the other item is to purchase, excuse me a second. The second request is from the Board of Health, and that's to purchase an additional 9 AEDs with wall cabinets. An assessment was done by the Board of Health, and they came up with a 9. You might have a chart there on what buildings had existing AEDs and what is needed, what was requested. And I just got this in tonight, but Massachusetts law mandates that AEDs are in public buildings and fitness facilities and schools as well as medical facilities. But the occupational safety, the OSHA recommends that they are in all workplaces. So like in the town hall, we had one, which is on the first floor, and they want to add one to the second floor. And I'm like, there was another one, there's one up at the new athletic fields, and there's a second one to go up there. And that wall cabinet is temperature regulated. It's for cold weather, so it would be year-round up there. And that, if you notice, that cabinet was like $500 and something compared to $300 and something for the other cabinets.
Do these actually have a useful life, or are they pretty much good forever?
You know, I'm not sure of that. I think, I don't know, because the ones we have are pretty old. Do you know,
There is a life expectancy, I'm not exactly
yeah.
sure.
I think they said at the meeting, Ed, that it was 8 years and the batteries went for 4 years. Does that make sense, Paul?
It sounds,
I remember the 4 years on the battery, I think, so.
That's exactly right. I'm looking up my notes.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Yep. Mrs.
Through you, Mark. Are people trained to use these defibrillators? I think it's great that we are going to have more of them, but if,
We had to, I'll be honest, we've been a little lag, especially with COVID and everything.
Yeah.
And one of the items that Melissa and Trish had focused in on the last 6 months or so is, let's get an inventory of the AEDs that we have in the buildings. I can tell you before, when I was the assistant, we had sent at least one person per building to go get trained on it. I'd look to Trish and Melissa to kind of keep that program going once these are back in place. So,
Good. When you train on them as a layperson, it talks you through it.
Yeah.
You can't shock or do anything unless the machine tells you to do it. So it says, turn it on, place them here, and if you don't do it right, it won't move forward.
Yeah,
They're pretty,
the whole purpose behind them is to make
that a
them,
layperson can use
yeah,
it.
pretty straightforward. Training's nice,
Right.
but not required.
But you want to know that people know where they are.
Yeah.
And that, in fact, they can be walked through, rather than just standing there and saying, I don't know how to use it, I don't want to touch it.
Melissa must be watching because she just texted me 8 to 10-year life.
10-year life. Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks.
Mark Sullivan?
So, like, how many times in the last 5 years have these been used in Walpole and attributed to saving someone's life?
I can tell when this area was a senior center, we did use the one at this end of the hall a few times. Most recently, I couldn't give you a set number as far as this building. Only takes that one time, Mark.
What's that? I know,
Yeah.
with my luck, you know. But I do kind of wonder, you know, when you look at like the cost of these things, you know, like, how often do they really work? Where, you know, you've shocked someone, you've brought them back, the fire department's been able to come, the ambulance, and, you know, I don't think they're very efficient, but, you know, I also understand.
I'm gonna speak, having spent 26 years in the security industry, and these things are amazing on the amount of people's lives they've saved. Yeah.
Because remember now, we're also sending ambulances farther away, so trying to get somebody here, if the equipment's on site, anybody can do it. If you have to wait for somebody to bring equipment in, that's more time off the person's life, where the first 5 minutes is the most important, bringing a person back.
Yeah, the
So-
statistics
Yeah.
on
So,
their
no,
use
I'll
cases.
just be curious then, you know, I know that the fire ambulance, they track everything. I'll just be curious as the years go on, like, how many times they've really actually used and attributed to saving someone's life. I'm not voting against it, I'm just looking at, here's a big cost, here's another thing that government comes in and says, okay, and now you all need to do this, just like, and I don't mean to bash the animal control officer, but now we pay a fortune because government has said they need to have this training and this and this, and how many times you just get added on items because the government thinks it's a good idea, but yet, when you do the cost comparison, is it really worth?
What's a life worth?
Yeah,
was just
that's
gonna
actually-
say
I know, I understand that argument, but it is
It's not an
a,
argument,
it
it's,
is a, no,
It's
but
the reality.
it is a decision to
yeah,
make.
20, you know, saves one life in 20 years, I think money's well spent.
Yeah.
They say there are a lot of government requirements I would argue against. This is not one of them.
Okay, no, I'm not, I'm just curious, I'll just be curious to see, you know, see him in action.
Jeff,
Back and let you know.
Jeff, do you have a question? You're all set? Okay.
Danny picked on
Okay.
I had a question about how the rules work. I'm looking here and seeing that the old police station gets 2 AEDs. Is it one per floor,
Yes.
or?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brian? That was your question? Okay.
Is that true, one per floor? Because we've got 3 floors over there.
So Ed asked a similar question. We reached out to Melissa earlier today. So she did say, the American Heart Association, as well as OSHA, strongly recommends that AEDs installed in all public buildings. Ed covered that. A few local bills here that she references, but I don't have that info, so I'm sorry.
Did you get the letter? Did you get the same letter that I got? Yeah, we just got this letter because, you know, we were told that the Board of Health did an assessment, and this is what they came up with, and I had asked earlier today what, you know, if there were any guidelines to go by, you know, to follow, and there really wasn't, and this is just the paper that she gave me, so, did you want me to read it real quick, or you?
Sure, it looks short.
It says Massachusetts law pertaining to mandated AEDs in public buildings currently applies to fitness facilities, schools, as well as medical facilities. The United States Department of Labor, Occupational Safety, and Health Administration, however, strongly recommends that AEDs are present in all workplaces. OSHA stresses the importance of readily available AEDs and encourages the installation of the devices in workplaces. as AEDs are an important life-saving technology treating cardiac arrest outside of a hospital. Legislation is actively being proposed at both locally and nationally to expand on the list of those establishments required to provide AEDs, since the outcome of having AEDs in an emergency can be life-saving. Those lie in individuals operating an AED in good faith are covered under the Mass Good Samaritan Law.
So I have an answer from our expert. The way they calculated it was one per active floor, with Town Hall only having 2 active floors, that's why.
Okay, but the old town hall, the lower level really isn't considered an active level, right?
Right now, yeah.
Right, okay.
Could we move these if, if we didn't want to have a second one at Old Town Hall?
Yeah, they're portable. The cabinets, just relocate the cabinets and they would fit in the cabinets, so.
Thank you.
So this is 9 new, we've got 11, we don't need to do anything to the existing 11? Replace batteries, pads, anything?
Not at this time. That
My
wasn't,
understanding was there is maintenance needed on an annual basis, biannual basis. So I'm curious, I mean, section 12 isn't filled out, what will the additional operating costs be? If we need ongoing maintenance of these, is it capital going forward, or is that just operating covered under the health department?
so, actually, they're very similar to the fire department. If you read in the report there, it says, it's a different brand, but they are similar to the fire department, so I don't know if, do you guys have a regular maintenance on yours or anything?
On those, we check them daily, and if there's a little more different, or they're in our equipment, we check part of our daily truck checks with them, so we'll want it after this evening, as opposed to, the public buildings, which, like the fire extinguisher in a public building is checked on, as often as somebody checks it.
Okay. Yes, Josette?
At the senior center, we have 2, one on each floor, and I know they are consistent with whatever the police department has, so does each department have a different brand?
No, they're all the same brand.
They're all the same brand, okay.
And she did just get back to me. They have the maintenance cost in their operating budget.
Actually, there's 3 at the Council of Aging, is that what the senior center? I think they have
There's
3
3
there.
There is
But
3,
they were,
yeah.
and they were all existing, there's no additional ones.
That was part of the building that we wanted to have it
Probably, yeah.
there. But I didn't know if we were, I couldn't remember if we were mandated to have it, or if we just felt that it was best practice to have it for safety.
That might be one of the buildings we would need it,
Most
have more of a
definitely.
need for.
And the ambulance gets used there, too.
Okay,
Just
Jeff?
one more, and it'll probably spawn a text, but, the existing 11, are any of those like close to end of life that we also need to consider replacing as well?
Text is going out.
Maybe
Yeah.
You got 3 bubbles?
I'm getting the 3 bubbles. She'll probably be back to me in a sec, Jeff. but, yeah.
Okay.
Jeff, to your point, so some of the, so DPW, for instance, there's one existing one there, she's requesting 2 for that same location, so some of these are supplementing the ones that are existing already. Blue Running Fields is one there now, she's supplementing it with one more.
Because there's actually 3 buildings there, right? So they'd probably want 1 per building up there, right? I would think.
I think it's to have some for, there's the northern fields and the southern fields.
I found it interesting when we had the capital budget meeting,
Yeah.
Sorry.
that the box that they have up at the fields is almost, it's different than a regular box, and it's like weather conditioned so that it doesn't affect at any time, no matter what the temperature is, that it will always stay as needed. It's like atmospheric pressure and stuff they have in there that keeps it.
Right, so a little follow-up to that, it says here, it's an AED wall cabinet, rotate, solid plus heat with alarm.
Yeah.
And it's red.
So the current 11, again, she just got back to me, they'll purchase the batteries and the pads as needed within the operating budget, but the current 11 are fairly on the newer end.
Okay. Any other questions for Article 4? Being none?
Motion for favorable action for Article 4. the amount
Second.
of-
By Denny and Susan?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I don't think a vote, did you want to vote on that?
Oh, sure.
On the rest of it, so.
Yeah.
It was requested $20,000 in favorable action, 600 from $20,000 from the ambulance fund. So Article 4, favorable action for $470,000, and all of that would be from the ambulance fund.
And that's Denny's motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Seconded by Susan.
Seconded by Susan. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained?
Aye, for ambulance, abstain for.
Okay.
So we're
So-
going to break it down?
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Can you do that?
Yeah, I can split the vote. So we got we got 1200 on the ambulance and 1101 on defibrillators.
How would you report that at town meeting?
Because the article's for the total amount.
One article,
That's true.
Yeah, I don't think,
yeah. You either vote
I'll
up or
abstain the whole
down.
thing, huh?
Okay.
yeah.
It
All
still
right.
passes.
All righty, 1101, okay.
Vote on that, Mark, 11-0.
1101, Jeff abstained. All righty?
What's that?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Ed.
Could I just ask the Assistant Chief, just curious, with the med flights, when they come in, is the fire department involved with those, or is it just they land, they pick up, and then they'll take off?
We bring them to the, when you say, are we involved, we call for them, we initiate the contact with them, depending on the patient's condition.
So does each town have like an area where the helicopter comes versus?
Each town has a predetermined landing zone, and we have that.
So when it's here, it's our ambulances that have called for them to come and pick them up?
Correct, or if, or a situation may present itself where if another community was transporting and decided to call for a med flight, they would do that. There's been times where this has been unavailable, and we've gone to Lenore Airport, something, along with, it's pretty typically, we're initiating the request for the med flight, and so it's our scene, and it's, we're requesting. If another community were to come in here, I don't believe it's happened, but they said, no, it does happen. We would still control the LZ. We would be responsible for anything that happened, but it would be, basically, we're transferring the care to a higher medical authority when we pass the care off to the med flight group.
Okay,
We don't ride in the back of the helicopter with them, all care is transferred
They do it all,
to the
okay,
helicopter.
all right, thank you.
Okay. So our 4 favorite words, snow and ice budget?
Sure.
Please, don't spend any
We're in
more.
okay shape. We've got a balance of about 130,000 in there, so recommend no action on that one.
Okay. Yes.
Where's the 130, refresh my memory, I don't, 130 goes to free
Goes back
cash?
to free cash.
At the end, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Can you guarantee no more snow this?
Tomorrow's April 1st.
We've had an April Fool's Day storm before.
We've had a May 9th one, too.
I met my wife on April 1st, 1997.
Okay.
3 feet of snow.
How much did we start with, Jim?
818,000.
There being no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion for no action.
No action by Denny,
Second.
second by Susan. All in favor of no action, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 1200. Stabilization. Jim, we don't have any plans to add at this point. We'll wait till
No.
free cash gets certified and do it in the fall.
Recommend no action on that one.
Okay. Any questions?
What's the balance these days? Do we have one? Approximate?
Stabilization was over 9.
8.7.
Oh, market value, yeah.
Thank you.
Market value swings. Okay. Any other questions? There being none, I'll entertain a motion for no action on stabilization.
So moved.
By Denny,
Second.
seconded by Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 1200. Same for OPEB. We're not allocating any money at this time.
Recommend no action on that one. Again, same situation as stabilization.
Any questions or comments?
I'm looking for my note on the balance on that.
But, no, it's okay, it's for whatever. What do we, did the budget have something in there? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
the budget had 500,000.
Yeah, we have
500,
500,000.
okay, we already discussed it, I'm not gonna belabor it.
Motion, sorry, what's before us is no action.
So moved.
So moved by Denny,
Second?
second by Susan. All in favor of no action? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Seven
No.
point- 7.6 million, Larry.
Put more in,
1110.
7.6 million, Larry.
thank you.
Okay. 1110, Larry is a no. Okay.
Just before you get in the personnel board one, I did, or initially, we were gonna talk about sewer and water budgets. I know I gave you a brief update on that, in an email I sent about an hour or two ago. So what the plan is for sewer and water on, Monday night, they've asked me to give them, 4 or 5 different scenarios. Each commissioner asked for a scenario. They each have received those scenarios for both sewer and water. Myself, Jody, Lisa, Scott, Patrick, and Rick have worked together to kind of come up with, along with Bill Abbott, a hybrid, to see if we could kind of get a happy medium, to get some of what some of the commissioners want, to try to have a balanced budget there without using a whole lot in retained earnings. So I distributed that out on Tuesday to the commissioners, so they'd have almost a full week to get it. So far, I haven't received any questions. I don't know what to expect on Monday night. I don't know what direction they're gonna wanna go in as far as rate setting, if they're, or what. But we have you posted for a meeting that night, and then I'm hoping we can adjourn to just the lunchroom at the Delaney Treatment Plant so you guys can take a vote on those articles 6 through 9. We don't anticipate, we were a little concerned about the in-year budgets for water and sewer. Water's looking fine, sewer's tight, but we think we're gonna be okay. And so I don't think any action is gonna be required on Article 6 and Article 8. And I'm gonna probably have 2 or 3 motions drafted for you, I'll have them printed out, but we also may need to kind of adjust on the fly a little bit. If I need to hop into an office over there and just type a new motion out, but I'll get you a couple of different drafts. It might be a little confusing, the funding, because sewer is the one in worse shape. It's in bad shape, and even if we go with the hybrid model, it's still gonna be short $200,000 plus. So we're gonna need to take those funds from somewhere, and I just don't know where they're gonna wanna take it. I have a suggestion for them and a suggestion for you.
Okay.
It's not desirable, but it is what it is at this point, because I know they don't wanna raise the rates to the 11.5% on the sewer side that we talked about.
Okay.
Water, where if they go with some of the scenarios we worked on, it's much more manageable.
Okay.
More to come on Monday night, so 6:30.
6:30.
Alrighty, so we'll jump on to Article 16.
Can I ask some questions about that?
Well, we'll get to that one after this. I want to get the articles we're voting tonight done, and then we can follow up with Jim's memos, and we can review the scenarios in detail. But Article 16 is the language modifications to the charter and bylaws, basically dissolving the personnel board. This had some substantial discussion the last time it was before us, and we deferred so people can get a better feel and handle and ask questions behind the scenes, and hopefully they've received answers and we're ready to discuss. Larry?
Jim, in your note to us, your memo, you mentioned, one of the comments was growing increasingly concerned about the town's potential for exposure of liability. Has the personnel board been sued before, or what's the liability you think that
My
could?
concern is, at times, not with this current board, and I was mindful to mention in the memo I provided to you dated March 23rd, this has nothing to do with these current board members. They're all fine people, and it's more or less problems that we've encountered in the past, be it political or people wanting access to personnel files where, why do you want access to that personnel file? Is there something specific? I've been put into that situation. So those are the types of liabilities that I'm talking about.
As a former member of Personnel Board, I have a couple questions. I was going through some minutes of some of our meetings we had over the last 18, 19, 20, And we often, Patrick or yourself, come into our meetings and discuss, we talk about stipends, personal action items, that's new hires, departures, salary changes, and we just have a dialogue. We meet probably, usually every month, maybe not in the summer. I'm gonna say about 8 to 10 times a year we would meet. We talked about job descriptions. Al was great at tweaking language and just making sure it fit better. I mean, we had another lawyer on the group too, Julie. They would just, different people would bring different pieces to it. We would work with I think it's every 2 or 3 years, we'd entertain a salary consultant to kind of give a sense on are we being competitive on salaries for the non-union folks. And I guess the question I have is mentioned here and here, equity from the management versus the union. The union, when the contracts are negotiated, there's gives and takes. They negotiate, they bargain. And often the comment was, well, the union getting this increase or this benefit, therefore the non-union people should. And we debated that, again, because the non-union folks weren't negotiating anything. It wasn't a contract. And quite honestly, the non-union people were negotiating the contract. So it's kind of, I don't know. That was something we would talk about. And I'll give you an example. I know this is back in March of 19. Request was brought forward, I'm reading the minutes. A request was brought forward to increase a sick leave buyback from $3,500 max payout to $4,500 payout. Brief discussion was held. We voted against it. And the rationale was, well, the union gets it. Why can't, and it just we didn't think it made sense because it would be for everybody. We just added more cost to the taxpayer. I just don't think the select board are great, there's nothing wrong with them, but it's executive versus, I think the personnel board is the finance committee represents town meeting, the legislative part of the process, I would say. And I think it's healthy to have personnel, are we personnel experts per se? No, I think we learn a lot while we're on that position and we can add value and try to help the town administration and also try to protect the taxpayer. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do. It wasn't, and I don't remember ever looking at asking for personal records or anything. That's no one's business but the HR person. It was more about policy and just having a discussion. And I think putting it in the select board, fine, but even bringing it to the finance committee, we meet, spring, summer, where we would meet as a personnel board, several times a year and get up to speed what was going on and try to be productive, for the town. And so I'll stop there, but I can't support this. I think it is important, whatever you want to call it, check, balance, whatever, to have someone other than another, take something away from the town meeting. Thank you.
Others with questions, comments, concerns? Susan?
So, I'm a former member, a long time ago, on the personnel board. And when I served for the 3 years, I relied very heavily, as did the group, on the then deputy, Marjorie Doherty, who had quite a wealth of information in the area of HR. I have decided, after thinking about this, to support the elimination of the personnel board, for the reason that I think the way the town is evolving, it turns out that the issues I was most concerned about, employment contracts and so forth, are going to go on anyway. There's no mechanism for the personnel board to decide whether there will or won't be employment contracts. And so I think that such a small group of people, and I think that the difficulty in recruiting, and again, the lack of expertise as compared to the professional staff in town hall, all leads me to conclude that I think this is a relic that we can move beyond. I think it's a very different situation from Finance Committee. I think the Personnel Board, again, we're so fragmented, so many collective bargaining agreements that are, not dealt with by the Personnel Board. I think at one time, the Personnel Board was involved in union contracts, but again, things have evolved over time. So I think we're in a different place, and I would be, I'll vote in support of eliminating the Personnel Board. Again, good people, and I think they've, worked, tried to do their best, but I think the time has come to move on.
Yes.
I struggle with this one a little bit. I see the memo, I was here at the last discussion. For me, it comes down to the efficiencies that are achieved by removing this board. You've kind of talked about job descriptions getting done faster. You talked about some raises that weren't approved in a timely manner. Can you give us any other examples of some of the efficiencies that will be achieved?
Well, I can tell you, and I believe I cited that in the beginning of my memo, or at some point there. I was in a tough spot this past October, trying to get a meeting together to set the living adjustments. We had a meeting on September 14th. After that, I had asked for another meeting to address the living adjustments so we can include it in the budget message. We had to cancel a meeting on the 12th, cancel a meeting on November 9th, cancel another meeting on November 14th. By then, the budgets were out, the department heads had them. By the time they actually met with November 16th, voted on the living adjustment that was recommended at 2.75. And the other small adjustments that were recommended add a couple positions in. But by then, the budgets were out. We had to go back out, issue another memo. Most of the budgets were already in Munis. We had to ask the department heads to go back in, adjust accordingly for these 68 or so employees. And that's not just you hit a button, it's you gotta go in and do it. And it tied up the budget process a little bit. That's one that particularly comes to mind. There's other processes where, not this current board and, not recently, not when Larry was on it, but I've had board members who have wanted to meet with Val consistently. And I understand you're a first-time member, on there for the first year, you wanna get to know it, but these were longer-term serving members. They were in there a year or two at least. Wanted to go over every single PAR and wanted, this person, why is he or she getting bumped up here? Or why are they being brought in as summer help here when they were here last summer or something? It was very tedious work. I give Val all the credit in the world for sitting with those people and taking the time, but it takes away from other matters. So those are just two that come to mind.
Thank you.
Just a couple of views that I see. The moderator appoints this board and the Personnel Board. If he feels that he needs to still have volunteers that have an expertise in human resources, he can appoint them to our board, because we still have to hear the articles anyway. And maybe as part of your process is, when you're talking about cost of living adjustments, maybe you call us in for a meeting first Monday of December and say, this is what we're recommending for cost of living. And we debate it before it even becomes an article, so he can put his budget together with input from us.
That's what I envision, honestly, with your input and the input of the select board.
Yeah, so because we did a joint meeting with regards to OPEB, and we could do the same thing with the Board of Selectmen. So Jim's making his pitch, Board of Selectmen and us, we'd listen to it and say, can we afford that increase? Can we, agree on a number, get a consensus, and then when we deliberate later, our board may change, but looking at the bigger picture of what the whole budget is, but at least he's got some input to put together his budget and has some feel for what direction we want to go, Board of Selectmen want to go. Yes.
So I've come to the conclusion to vote to support this, and basically it's what it was set up to do back in the 50s is now being taken and done by other groups. I read through the changes, the checks and balances, I'm comfortable it's still there. It's the select board, it's the town manager. The employees still have the right to go to the select board and appeal any grievances they have, so no one can overly control. And then the other thing that just jumps out at me here is just the personnel board is overseeing the parts for 68 out of the 630. So for 10% of our town employees, we're staffing a personnel board. They're reviewing all these things, and I just don't see that the efficiency is there anymore.
Yes.
Put forward a motion for favorable action, Article 16.
Second?
Favorable action by Denny, seconded by Susan. Show of hands, please, all in favor? Opposed? Brian and Larry? And abstained? None. Okay.
So what's that?
Uh,
10-0, 10-2-0?
10-2-0.
So Larry and Brian?
Yep. Okay. On to sewer and water budgets. Jim gave us a quick update on, he's made presentations to the sewer and water commissioners of various rate plans that they had asked for. They will be meeting Monday. We're invited to attend. We also have a meeting scheduled for Monday, so once they vote their rates, we will be moving into the cafeteria next door to their meeting room and debating, deliberating on all 4 of their articles. 2 of their articles, which are the current year's enterprise fund budgets, are leaning towards no action at this point. But I noticed that you did have outstanding legal bills listed under both sewer and water. Are those liabilities? Are those,
I can explain it without getting into details on that one. They're getting sued over the entrance fees for one of the developments within the last few years. We have been for some time. Jody, after talking to the auditors, they suggested we show that as a liability, because it's gonna count if, again,
so
without
this
saying
is
too much,
anticipation
if
of a
judgment
settlement,
is
we just
in
don't
our
know when.
favor, that's the maximum we anticipate that we would be on the hook for.
okay, so it's somewhere down the road, worst-case scenario, we'll have a settlement, and it's a case of when does that hit?
Yeah, so the liability that's shown there is worst case scenario.
Which definitely does put an impact on sewer side. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Is the different scenarios, is that what you sent us late this afternoon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't had a chance, okay.
So what I listed, Larry, on the front there was we broke it down real simple. Retained earnings for sewer, retained earnings for water, and we listed out, and then we showed you what we've used it on this year, and then we listed the liability, and then the bottom line. I think bottom line for sewer was like 446 or something.
Yeah, 446,
It's
yep.
tight.
Yeah.
I'll take a look. Do they have to set a rate at that meeting, or can they say, we'll kick it?
They don't have to.
Okay.
They've done that before.
Yeah.
Okay.
That affects our motion.
Got it.
So, yeah, because we have to note a funding source. So if they come up with no rates, we says, well, based on the budget that we want to approve, you have to get X from rates and X from free cash and X from miscellaneous receipts. Now go figure out your rates, but make it work.
So I've talked to some of you one-on-one after meetings, and some of the questions that came up was, well, what if we pass a budget at 0? And I said, please don't do a 0 budget. But the other question was, well, what if we pass a budget that we know probably won't cover them to the end of the fiscal year? And I kind of paused and asked, let me think about that. I wanted to talk to Jody. I also wanted to consult with town council, because the way I looked at it, Jody looked at it a little differently, and I wanted to make sure we were both on the same page. And the way council explained it to both of us was, technically, your budgets, let's use snow and ice for an example. We could get a worst-case scenario and run out of money before May in one of those, or know we're on track with the school budget to run out of money and have to do a transfer at the May town meeting, or maybe there's a budget in October that we knew was tracking negatively, we have to fund. So there's that October town meeting where we could you could pass a budget for $100,000 or $500, just so we know we get to the October town meeting. Just technically, we are at a structural deficit, but we're not at an actual deficit until we hit that point. DOR would not like that, but we could do it if you wanted to do something like that. And that's a couple of the scenarios that we have to work on, because I want to be prepared. Here's Denny, here's 2 or 3 scenarios.
Yeah.
Here's where you're at if you go with 1, 2, or 3, type of
I
thing.
mean, eventually, there just needs to be enough funding to cover it. And so we should, I mean, we shouldn't be passing a budget that, you know, well, never mind, I'll wait till Monday. Keep my
We
mouth
usually
shut till
don't
then.
set the rates until after town meeting.
Yeah.
They've decided to move this up, and initially, we like the idea of moving it up because we're always kind of gambling.
Right.
Because the town meeting passes the budget, but what will the commissioners do? And, you know, we have had incidences. I went back to 2000, I reviewed every motion going back to 2012 because I was curious. I wanted the history of, you know, what have we used retained earnings on over the last 12 budget cycles? So I have that now. We've gone back in the fall and put 200, 400 from retained earnings in the budget. So we've done it before.
So this year's budget, sorry, do you mind? This year's budget, how much did we generate from rates? What's the percent, even if not the amount, what percentage came from rates and what percentage is coming from retained earnings? Do we know?
I don't know it off the top of my head, I can get it.
It's high 4s. Does that sound about right?
Well, based on your,
Percentage-wise,
4 million.
oh, yeah.
over his rates, yeah.
So high 4s of a 5, I don't think either budget this year is in the $6 million range, is it? They're both in the 5s.
Yeah, I think so, high fives,
So like
So
round
80%.
numbers, 80%, yeah.
Well, I mean, based on your memo, we only put in 200,000 last spring to supplement their budget. So if their rates are low,
But that's not just their rates, that's also their receipts. That's the
Right, the miscellaneous,
tie-ins from
right.
whatever developments are
Yeah.
going on.
right, but I meant just from your retained earnings category here, you took 200,000 from retained earnings for both budgets last spring. When we voted the budget, you did 200 apiece. And so they could be short on rates, but if they got connection fees that came in higher,
Yeah.
you don't see that until the DOR audits, and it's like, well, yeah, we made enough money to cover our budget. Yeah, but your rates didn't cover it. You had to rely on one-time money of connection fees that came in earlier than expected, or, you know,
And that's what the Abrams report, you know, when they did that
Stipulating.
study in 2020, was one of the things they called out. You should be covering your rates, your cost with your rates, not just your receipts and the, you know, we've been lucky. We've had these big developments downtown, and that's brought in a lot of revenue. But that was more or less meant to go towards capital and maybe eventually stabilizing rates. And I understand doing that, but it's to go towards capital. So, and I mean, we do have ARPA funds, there's about $5.2 or $3 million left. The commissioners can advocate and ask for ARPA funds to be used on that, but again, that's one-time funds, so.
but once again, it's also for a capital, not an operating budget. So the
Yes.
rates should still be covering operating.
Yeah.
Mark?
So I'd like to ask about just the logistics for Monday. So I went to my first water meeting last week or the week before, which was an interesting experience. So I guess what I'm wondering is, like, do we have to meet on Monday? Because my concern is this, you go into a room that had a lot of people in it, we're sitting in the back, you can't hear what the commissioners are saying. The commissioners are arguing amongst themselves about the financial papers, are arguing with Jody. One is convinced that we're making more money and others aren't. So what I'm wondering is, are we gonna get there at 6? And I know you probably can't tell us. So I'm just wondering, do we have to meet Monday? Can we
do it at the public hearing?
do it at a later time?
You can, but, so the reason we have this Monday deadline is we have to go to print for the booklet on the following day. We send it to the printer. And Kelly needs to get it out. We need X amount of weeks, so 2 weeks to print it, a week or so mess up with the mail if things don't, there's a certain amount in the timeline in the charter that says it has to be in the hands of the voters, the registered voters.
And they don't have to decide. In other words,
You
we
can
could go there.
recommend, that night, you can say, I don't have enough.
Recommendation at town meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll still
We have to-
meet.
we have to
We
vote
don't
Monday.
necessarily have to vote in favor of a budget. We can turn around and say recommendation at town meeting and just wait them out. But the idea is to at least be there, hear what their discussion is. If they make a move, we can decide if their move is reasonable, and then we can vote in favor or recommend a town meeting and defer it out.
We're at the public meeting
Or
that
what-
we
yeah.
have,
And what time is it at?
6:30.
Their rate hearing is at 6:30. I figured we would start at 6:30, and then I think it's maybe one other item on the agenda, so it's the first thing. So I think we'd go to the lunchroom by 7.
7 o'clock and deliberate, yeah.
I will
Your
also
wishful thinking.
You're right, you're right.
say through you, Mark, it was kind of a painful meeting that, for those of us who
Should
attended.
have watched it.
Again?
You've been watching it.
I couldn't leave that night.
But I think it's really, I think it's important for us to understand what's going on with, I just think it's important to hear it.
Yeah.
Rather than getting data or a report.
Right.
I mean, I just think it's important to
See it in action.
be there.
My recommendation is get there early and get one of
Yes.
the seats in front.
Offered to have them hold the meeting in this room, other meetings, and they've told me, nope, come down to us. And
Yeah,
it is
no,
what it
that's
is.
fine. I'm not complaining about their meeting or anything. It's just what we experienced last time, just,
Just getting a place to park was.
Jim,
It's challenging.
when you were talking about voting a budget that's not their full budget,
Yeah.
say that we vote them a budget that will give them $1.5 million and it anticipates getting them maybe through November. They get their certified retained earnings number and it comes in lower than they expected. Can they change their rates?
Midway,
Well, they can change, they've changed their rates, they've changed their rates in the fall before.
Okay.
All they have to do is meet the
They seem to do
requirements.
anything they want to do.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
They have
All
to have a
they do is
hearing.
meet the requirement
Yeah.
of posting it in the newspaper, I think it's 14 days before,
Okay.
and they can change the rates now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because, well, what I'm thinking is that you said, well, yeah, they're gonna say, well, yeah, we're gonna use 600,000 of the water, and we're gonna use 300,000 of the sewer to balance our budget. But then retained earnings gets certified in August, and they only have 300,000 in sewer in retained earnings. You're gonna say, you're gonna blow all your retained earnings to supplement the rates, and you're gonna have nothing in case of an emergency.
And for next year.
So-
And that's where you get hit with, or,
Yeah.
you know, a sewer, 70, I think it's 79% of our rate is fixed. We don't have a say.
Yeah, it's all
Because it's
MWRA.
all
Yep.
MWRA, it's a bill. Town of Walpole pay this.
Yep.
No choice.
Yep.
And one of the commissioners at the end of the meeting said, well, I know our fixed rate, our fixed costs are 5% at the MWRA. And, you know, if we go up by the 2.5%, I could live with the 7.5% increase. And, you know, we're kind of hoping that they come close to something along those lines. We built a budget based on that.
Okay.
Hypothetically, what could be the consequences from the DOR?
They hit our free cash, and we confirmed that with council. So,
Okay, that's what I was concerned for.
yeah, we run out of money there, and I know Patrick's been on the longest, and he's said this to me, and I've only ever heard it from Patrick, but I received confirmation from council this week that they run out of money. First they'd hit water, and then they run out of water, they'd hit free cash.
And nobody has any say in it because they have not done the
State wants us to close
sustainability.
out on a positive note and
So-
not on a negative
So
note.
question, if we know at next spring's town meeting, May 2023, that they're gonna have a deficit, there's no way they're gonna collect enough to cover. Can an article be brought forward for the sewer and water commissioners to borrow to cover their budget, to close their year so they don't have a deficit? And then make sure that they account for proper rates the following year?
Wow, I don't think so. I don't know.
Looking at you two,
I
but
honestly
I
have
know
no idea.
right now, if they were to close out in a negative this year, but if they had retained earnings, which water's still okay.
Yeah.
They could hit the water, and they wouldn't close out in a negative on the retained earnings. I don't think they couldn't borrow against
They can
themselves.
actually borrow from the general fund
Okay.
if we choose to go that route.
Yeah.
So Springtown meeting and say, to supplement your budget to close out so you don't have a deficit on sewer only, because we want water to be able to do all of its capital, we could say, hey, town is willing to loan you, sewer and water commissioners, X to balance your budget to the end of the year, and it's gonna be part of your debt service in next year's budget, set your rates accordingly.
They would need to do that,
Yeah.
though.
Okay, all right.
And if they, the problem is if they don't set their rates,
Then next year, there's another deficit.
they're just take,
Yeah.
the state is gonna take it out of.
Yeah.
The problem is they don't have somebody on their board. They don't have several people on their board with financial heads. The gentlemen that are on the board are really good of the piping and, you know, everything underground, the infrastructure. But for the sustainability of paying for what their needs are, they don't have more than one person that has a financial head. And that's a shame.
Yeah.
Because they're not under the, as we all know, they're not under the Board of Selectmen, they're not under the administration. They're an island unto themselves, and they can do what they want and ignore what any, in my opinion, ignore what everybody else is saying, which has been proven for the last couple of years by what
As
they've
of
done.
right now, they have one seat up and one person running for it. John Splain's not running for reelection, so.
Yeah, they, well, they've actually got two people, James Paul
One
Taylor.
pulled papers, but I don't think he turned it back in. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff. James Paul Taylor and Bill Hamilton.
Pradeep had suggested also a tiered sewer structure. Have we modeled that at all or talked about it?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, he
He
hasn't
suggested it in the
given me.
meeting.
I don't know how we would tier it, and so.
would you
he
tier
I
hasn't
mean,
given us-
we bill based on usage for sewer, right?
Yeah.
So that's not one of the things that I've been directed, so the
We
answer is
have a
no.
deficit on the sewer side as well as the.
I don't have a
water.
scenario for that. I ran, this week, we ran 6 scenarios. I ran one, Rick ran one, and then I did 4 for the other commissioners. Commissioner Abbott said to me, I understand the situation you're in. I'm willing to work with the situation, and I'll work to have a balanced budget. So he didn't tell me to run a specific scenario, but I did run scenarios, and that wasn't one of the scenarios I was told to run.
Is sewer based on water usage? Yeah. So people who have irrigation systems, their irrigation meter does not count towards sewer, but
No,
their household water.
when you flush the toilet.
Oh,
yeah.
so there's an actual outflow,
Yeah, that's
meter.
how the MWRA gets their.
gets their
Oh, I
number.
thought it matched the water flow. If you used X
Yeah,
number
we
of
don't
gallons.
measure outflow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a percentage of the-
Measures the outflow for the town,
Yeah.
but we don't.
but we charge off.
Individual.
Yeah, the
We charge off
individuals,
of water
we're-
usage.
We're charged off of water usage on our sewer bills.
It's kind of a fallacy because your sewerage, it's really your sewerage bill, which is approximately a 2-to-1 ratio to your water bill. Everybody says the water, but it's actually the sewerage, which is the MWRA. So to bring in the MWRA as your water source, if you're finding fault with what the bills are now with just sewerage, you're gonna die with having the whole thing going. In addition to, it gives certain people the right to just continue with more construction.
Monday night should be interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Did people get a chance? I know I kind of sent them out late.
One other thing, the billing. So Pradeep brought it up, Abbott argued against it, but I got a bill from usages from 10/20 to 1/24 with a due date of April 8th. That's 6 months from the start of when I started purchasing that water until I actually have to pay for it.
And the issue is,
I'm looking at Lisa
I mean,
because she's my expert on this.
So what is the issue? Why is it not automated?
It is automated, so they get the readings, and so then it takes them up to almost 30 days with, they've actually squeezed it, because it was like 45. They have to review the readings. They review the readings that come in before they bill, so that takes them about 30 days. The moment that they're done, they notify us. We get the bill out in 4 days after, then that's what our printer, that's the closest we can squeeze it in, 4 days. And then it's 30 days. So it's the time that the reading comes in and the review of the readings is the time, that's 30 to 35 days, which they've squeezed, since Mary squeezed the calendar a little bit from about closer to 40. So, I mean, it's the work that they have to do after the reading comes in, after the 90 days. That's that time frame, because we get the bill out 4 days as soon as they say, we're done, 4 days, the bill's out.
In that review process, are they actually classifying the usage into categories, or is that part automated?
Well, I can't speak to that. I know they just review, because, you know, there are readings that come in, and, you know, with all the different meters or all the, you know, they have to review. If there's a high reading, they wanna make sure that that person doesn't get charged or is charged, it's not a leak, or they reach out, you know, there's different things, and I can't explain everything, it's just what I hear. But they do, for the sake of the ratepayer, they review their bill.
And I can tell you, for me personally, within the last 60 days, Mary called me and she said, Jim, I think you have a running toilet, your usage is high. Here's some tablets, run the tablets. They've done it for two of the commissions I can think of, had an abatement on their bills, because they reviewed, she does, if there's a spike in one of them, like they noticed with mine, they call you out and they say, listen, your usage is high here, so.
I had a spike once, but I had to pay the bill. I was able to abate the sewer rate.
Yeah.
I still have to pay the bill.
I'm curious, when they go through the readings, like, what percentage do they have to act on?
I can't speak.
What I'm wondering is, are they spending 30 days to review all these readings, and 99% of them are okay? And in other words, maybe we should be billing right away and let people that have problems with it call up, and so you are only dealing with those issues rather than looking for problems all ahead of time.
Like a quality control process
we
should
trying
be
to
like
pay our
the
bills sooner?
5%, right? Something like that.
Why do we wanna pay our bills
Less,
sooner?
yeah.
What?
Yeah,
Why do we wanna pay our bills sooner? I like to hold my cash for as long as I can, and,
Yeah.
Yeah, but what's it costing the town?
well, that's a whole
Not
nother
having
story,
it.
but if the town is happy with it.
Capital
They're
charges?
still getting all the bills out, and the money's
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
people who don't pay their bills, they don't pay their bills.
No, I'm just talking about I don't need to pay my bills sooner.
Right.
I'm with you.
I get
Dave.
6 months of holding my cash, that's a good deal for me.
And for those people that can't pay their bills, they can pay us monthly, regardless of their bill, they can pay us $50 a month. So by the time that quarterly bill comes out, we have $150, and their bill's $120 or whatever, and we carry the credit forward. So it's not like, you know, we're jamming the bill down their throat and they only have 30 days to pay. Everybody can pay on a monthly basis if they wanted. We just apply the bill, and they get when the bill comes out, they either have a credit or they owe us a little.
Great.
Okay.
On the Monday.
On the minutes?
On the minutes.
Did people get a chance to read them, or should we defer
I just
to another night?
wanted to have the discussion.
Okay.
I'm not gonna make a motion,
Okay.
and think you heard me. Is it just worth us, you know, recommending this at town meeting and just leaving it at that?
Recommending what?
What's that?
Recommending what?
Sewer and water.
The water and sewer article.
Oh,
Voting tonight.
Oh,
He's
voting
saying
tonight
voting
to
tonight to
recommend
recommend
at
at
town
town
meeting.
meeting.
no.
Not knowing what the outcome's gonna be Monday, we may not even be voting on anything Monday night.
Well, we may not,
It's on the agenda.
it's on the agenda. In addition to, you have a public meeting prior to town meeting. So you have the opportunity at that
But-
point,
but we have
if
to-
the decision has been made by them of what they're doing.
So what he's saying is to vote
Vote
no action tonight.
recommendation at town meeting tonight.
Yeah,
Vote
sorry,
recommendation
sorry.
at town meeting.
Right,
Tonight. That goes into the
If
book.
something actually comes out of Monday night's meeting, then we can
reconsider.
decide and take a vote on it,
Reconsider it.
reconsider it.
I mean, I think we should probably, I'll still leave a meeting posted for for Monday night at 6:30. We can always leave the room, go to the lunchroom and say, do you want to vote tonight, or do you want to just leave it at recommendation? I don't see a problem in that if that's what you want to do.
So recommend tonight.
Recommendation at town meeting,
All
and
three.
then
We can.
reconsider Monday, or
Reconsider
just let
Monday.
it sit until public hearing.
So I'm trying to understand why what's the benefit of doing that as opposed to doing nothing tonight and then making the recommendation?
Well,
I just
you-
got this feeling that Monday's not gonna be a
You saw,
productive
yeah, exactly. It
anything.
was
Yeah.
not
We're
very
not gonna have
productive
anything
the
to
last
vote Monday
meeting.
night. That's my feeling.
Are we gonna have a quorum Monday night?
That's the other issue, right.
Everybody did really well. What did we have, 10 or 11?
We ended up with 10.
Which was
Shortly
great.
after 7 o'clock.
So actually, I like Jeff's idea. Let's vote. So I would agree with Jeff to vote recommendation town meeting tonight. We can, Monday, if we have quorum, and we want to do something different,
reconsider.
we can vote to reconsider taking action then, so that way at least,
You may tell me Monday night, I'm not comfortable with any of these 3 or 4 articles.
yeah.
I wanna wait until the end of April and see what happens.
And that way we've got it in the book.
will be in there as something.
You'll have something in the book?
Should we make a motion for each individual article?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Make your motion, man.
Jeff, it's all yours.
Make a motion for recommending town meeting Article 6.
Second.
Seconded by Denny, okay. Jeff and Denny.
Just Article 6?
Just for Article 6, yep, we'll do each individually. All in favor of recommendation
Can
of
you just explain to me what it is we're doing?
We're voting, so.
I don't blame you.
That's fair enough. For purposes of the book, we're gonna vote tonight, recommendation at town meeting on the following articles.
Denny, you second?
We can always change it Monday to favorable action or no action, but we're just getting on record now that the recommendation will be made at town meeting or sooner, for purposes of the
So
book.
if nothing happens Monday night, when it goes to print Tuesday.
Right, you
that's
can
what
go
it's
ahead
gonna
and
do.
proceed. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
and I can get my letter written up and not have to be typing it 11 o'clock Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way,
We still might have to,
we
but.
still may have to make changes, but at least it'll
So that
be,
makes sense.
okay.
I
So
get that now.
Yeah,
this here, correct me if I'm wrong, this here, if we decide on the public meeting to vote differently, we have the option to rescind this and
You do
re-vote.
it Monday night
We can do it
or
Monday
the
night
public.
or
Or
public
at 10,
hearing,
okay.
or if we want to
We could have a
reconvene.
like,
Yeah.
even, we'll talk, but you could say it's, I forget when the public hearing is for. I forget if it's a Tuesday or Monday night
It's
or
a
whatever.
Tuesday night.
We could have it, we could have a meeting, be prepared to meet the Thursday before, and we'll talk before, and if
Yeah.
I think we have something ready to go, maybe we just do it, and then we'll talk, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so what's before us is recommendation at town meeting on Article 16. All in favor?
No,
Sorry,
6.
6. I was looking at the lineup, I was sorry. 6. Opposed, abstain?
Abstain.
Okay. 11, 0, 1.
Make a recommendation at town, motion for recommendation at town meeting Article 7.
Second.
By Jeff, seconded by Denny. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstain? 11, 0, 1.
Motion for recommendation at town meeting Article 8.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed, abstain?
Motion for recommendation Article 9.
Denny,
Second.
did you second that
Yep,
again?
yep.
Okay.
Okay. Didn't get a second yet?
I second,
Or you
yeah,
second
sorry.
it?
Second.
On number 9?
But
Yeah.
I didn't hear you, that's why I asked.
Keep working, sorry.
Yep, okay. All right, all in favor? Okay. 11, 0, 1. All righty. Okay, so, yep, so on minutes, people want to defer to another meeting? I mean, I got them out to you late yesterday. I already found a couple of items to change, but
Couple things. Who's doing the minutes these days?
we got Steve, Jim?
It's not you, Mark, right?
No,
No.
no.
What's that?
Steve, what's Steve's last name, doing the minutes?
Kevin.
Oh, Kevin, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't mean to call out by name.
No, okay, yeah.
Doesn't really matter. Just my overall comment in, I think you used a good adjective.
Yeah.
The brevity of the minutes is,
Okay.
like, animal control, there was a lot of discussion. It doesn't, you know, from my standpoint, right? If I wanna see what happened at the meeting, FinCom tonight, right?
Yep.
A good set of minutes, but I don't really have all the discussion. I gotta go watch 90 minutes of a YouTube
Gotcha.
video.
Mhm.
And,
Okay.
On the flip side of that, the good point is that what I like, that what he is doing is, like we just voted 1101, he will actually note that who the person is that is either voting against or abstaining, which is what I put down in my book, because if you're at town meeting,
Yeah.
and somebody asks at town meeting, you know, who voted for it or who voted against it and why, you've got it there. So that factor that Kevin's doing, I appreciate.
In a prior light, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Is there a way to add to the minutes when in the meeting this happened? So that way you don't have to watch the whole 90 minutes. You can say, this particular discussion was at this moment of the meeting. So if that's something that people want to see the full discussion of it, I guess.
You can. To be honest with you, every person who takes minutes takes them differently. We had Claire here
That's
forever.
We're used to Claire.
I've been spoiled by Claire.
We had Claire forever, and Kelly was doing it for 1 or 2 years, and
Yeah.
Kevin's taken over, but he's gotten a promotion to the clerk's office, and more of a full-time, more than a part-time role. So we just did interviews this week for a new person who's gonna help in our office and do these minutes too, so so you just gotta kind of tell them. I guess that's a long answer. If you'd like something added in there,
Yeah.
you can make it.
Okay.
But I
They're
think
your
what,
minutes.
through you, I think what Steve is suggesting is that the minute taker would note in the minutes,
A timestamp, so that if you
Time,
wanted to
like,
speed
this
through,
was at 33
Discussion of
to
water began at
46.
such and such a time.
Yeah.
So that if you wanted to go back and that's a great idea, that if you wanted to go back, you wouldn't have to go through the whole meeting. See, but I kind of feel like minutes, to me, are more a record of what was covered
Transpired.
and the votes and who voted, not all the conversation, really.
That's
I
what's,
don't either, but at the same time, you know, when we talked about the solar panels, right? Denny made comments, you made comments, Larry made comments, there was mention of one person on the board that made comments. And so,
Yeah, so I've
I'd
done,
at least like
Yeah.
people that made comments.
so
to
it
get
can be
identified.
amended. You just gotta let us know. Because technically in the minutes, conversation regarding water and sewer rates occurred. That's the law requires what was the motion taken, who made the motion. I understand you
all
want
the-
more
Yeah.
details.
The
so you
brevity
just
of
gotta
that
let
is
us know.
exactly all they require.
Right.
yeah.
I mean, I
I mean,
used to
if
do the
people-
do the minutes before in a group like this, and for some, it's difficult writing down the minutes, because you can go down this path,
Yes.
and it can be
Too much.
pages long.
Yeah.
We had one where, like, I like Steve's idea of like, check the video, and this is
Right,
where the
then you can
segment
go
is.
back.
But also, if you think you have a really important point, you agree with something, you don't, and and I would like this minuted during the meeting, so that they would actually make sure that it got into the minutes, if you felt that strongly about a certain point.
We've been so spoiled. 12 years of being spoiled by Claire.
1976 she started working.
Yeah.
This was actually, it was a school board thing, and people, they wanted their comments in, but they didn't want it attributed, their names in it. Because
They wanted to
what
be
happens
anonymous.
is,
You
people
get-
read them, they call you up and say, what are you doing, you know?
Yeah, they don't want to
And it
take
could
the
be
consequence.
cut and pasted, so.
All right, so are we voting on the minutes or not?
People ready to vote?
Most of them I'm abstaining, and the others I won't, I'm not gonna vote favorably, so.
Okay, you have a-
I have a question on the February 17th, actually, and to Josette. Motion by Josette and seconded by Ally Hamilton for favorable action on animal control.
All right.
You voted no.
Would you please talk louder, so I'm in the same room with you, but I can't hear you?
Motion by Josette Burke, seconded by Ally Hamilton for favorable action on animal control budget.
This is on the 17th of February?
That was 7-6-0, but you voted no, so.
Yes, I
Would you really
did.
make a motion for favorable action when you?
And voted no?
No, she
No, I
did not.
did not.
That, yeah.
So,
Odds are good that I probably made the motion.
Yeah,
Which article was that?
The animal
Oh, that was within that was within the general budget. I didn't
Yeah.
keep separate tabs on those. Gotcha. Yeah, I'd have to go back to my notes. Okay, I'm gonna defer to Monday on minutes.
okay.
Yeah, because I noticed on two of the sets that I went through, there was a couple of items, and I didn't get into details on the other ones. I just got a cursory review. And I got a couple of emails saying the head count versus the vote count were not consistent. We had 13 people there, but yet the votes were 12. So,
Gotcha.
yeah. So, minutes will be moved to Monday night. Any other items to come before us tonight? There being none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded by Susan. All in favor?
aye.
Unanimous, we stand adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.